What's up, YouTubians? Gary, the VW Jawbreaker. Here's what we got going on in the garage today. We are back on the 1835. We're gonna go ahead and set compression ratio on this, so we'll walk you through and show you how I do things and why. Let's get to work. All right, well, we got the pistons off the 3/4 side. The 1/2 side's already done, except for rockers and all that jazz, but for the most part it's done. So where are we at? Well, I went ahead and hit the store and picked up some 40,000 shims, and those are going to go in between the cylinders and the jugs. So if you look, always measure because they're always going to be slightly off. They are, but if you need to be exact and maybe stack a couple or something, it's always a good idea to measure them. So basically these are going to go on the jugs, are like so, and that's going to push the jug out just a little bit more and give a little bit more space. All right, set your deck height a little bit higher. Reason being is, of course, these measured at 50 cc's each. I got our 4 and 3 cylinder here. In order to make this chamber bigger, you'd have to go in and reshape it, the whole 9 yards, which a lot more work. And unless you're somebody like VW Darren or something that, you know, does this on a consistent basis and can be consistent 4 times, because you have to be consistent on all 4, then the best thing to do is add some cylinder shims. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to go ahead and get these jugs relapped into the heads. That way they have a nice seat seal surface all the way around, because remember, these don't have head gaskets or anything. These just, those jugs, metal jugs, just right there, and it's just a friction fit, if you will, or not really even a friction fit. They just have to be clamping. It's basically clamping force when you tighten down the head. So we'll go ahead and get set up. We'll go ahead and lap these into the cylinders, make sure we get a nice even smoothness all the way around, and we'll go ahead and get the cylinders cleaned up. We'll go ahead and dry fit the shims and jugs onto the case, double check compression height, make sure that's where we need to be, disassemble, and do it all over again, this time for final assembly. So let's get after it. All right, here we go. We've got the head marked for 4, 3, 50 cc's. We're going to start with number 4. So we're going to start with jug number 4, which I just line up dots or lines. So we'll take our jug and we'll take some regular valve grinding compound. A little bit goes a long way. You don't need a whole lot. I just kind of put a couple dabs on it like so, and then just go ahead, spread it around. Put it in, make sure it's all the way in, support it, and then just rotate it. Here's what we're looking for. We're looking for a nice, even, all the way around. Looks like we've got a little bit more to do on that bottom side, so we'll do it again. There we go. That looks good right there. So we've got a nice even ring all the way around. And we'll go ahead and do that to number 3 jug with number 3, and we'll be done with that part. So we got our cylinder shim. We're going to get that set up. For now, we're just going to put it on that way. Get our piston and jug on. I'm not going to worry about putting the wrist pin clips in the wrist pin, just because this is mock-up purposes. There we go, that's far enough for now, just for mocking up. Top dead center there. Now remember, you can do this with feeler gauges, dial indicator, whatever you want to do, but we'll do the feeler gauge. I've got a 30, a 20, and a 25, so that should give me 75 thousandths deck. There we go. Now we're sitting at 75 thousandths deck instead of the 35 thousandths originally because we added the 40 thousandths shim on the back. So now that we know that that is what we have, time to take it apart, silicone it all up, put it back together for good. Let's do that. Well, that's not too bad. Hopefully you're following along all right. We've got everything cleaned up on the case here, around the sealing surfaces on the block. We have double checked our deck height with the shim, right? So we put the shim basically on here, all right? We verified that we are now sitting at 75 thousandths deck height instead of the 35 thousandths. So we are good to go ahead and do a final assembly, get this side back together. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put silicone around here, put the shim on, silicone again. You don't need a lot, just a thin bead. We'll go ahead and get it set up and get her done. Used my super clean and cleaned up the cool tins. So we'll go ahead and get those snapped in place before we even bother putting the head on. All right, we'll go ahead and get ready for push rod tubes and the head. Now with the push rod tubes, there's normally a seam running down the center. Now since I painted them, you really can't see the seam on the outside, but if you look on the inside, you can see the seam up top. You always want your seam to go up top. I just put a little bit of fresh oil on that, and that's usually good enough. Push rod tubes are in. Now one thing you can do that helps, you take a 13mm socket and extension, you can actually get it in and kind of make sure that they are angled properly. Boy, you guys are really in the way, sorry. Now we're about ready to go ahead and start torquing it down. Now there is a certain torque sequence that you can follow. I prefer to start off with about 10 foot-pounds. I'm going to run insides first, then your outsides. And then with these 8mm studs, you need to run them, find your own specs. Good place to find your specs is in your Bentley manual, or there are other places as well. The final torque goes a different sequence, and that crisscrosses. I like to run through it again, just to make sure. Well, that's really it for setting the compression ratio on an engine. Again, not rocket science, it's easy stuff. We just spaced the cylinders out a little bit more, which in turn gave us a little bit more deck height. Moved everything out just a smidge. That's what it needed. So now I just need to kind of button up the rocker arms, push rods, get the tin back from them, get the carb set. We should be ready to go. This will ship back off to him and he can have fun with it. So I hope this was helpful. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Be kind to one another and be good.